Good afternoon. I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital studio. We're about to take you to a live event being held at Tri-C in Euclid. It is not often a member of the president's cabinet visits Northeast Ohio. You are looking live. The gentleman with his back to us with the navy blue suit and the white collar, that is Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. He is in town to tout really the president's infrastructure bill that was passed, a historic amount of money that's going to be put into several different areas when it comes to transportation. So Secretary Buttigieg gets to travel the country now and explore different ways in which the money is being spent. They are visiting the RTA, the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, their community training and development job hub at Tri-C. Very unique space. There is everything from learning how to work on RTA buses, how to drive them, simulators to work on how to drive them, as well as several other transportation type learning tools that they can students can come out of there with certificates and degrees to go into business. Now remember, Ohio is getting quite a big chunk of that $100 billion infrastructure bill. Cleveland is getting, Ohio, is getting $10 billion alone for our roads and bridges. We're getting $1.5 billion to go towards public transportation. Again, you can see Buttigieg there taking a tour of the facility. We've been told that they've been there shortly before noon. They took a tour of the class space. They may have even gotten to work on the simulator. I can see County Executive Armand Budish there as the secretary is now being waved towards the front where he's going to give public comment. But again, not every day that we get a member of the cabinet addressing here in Cleveland. We believe that that is also Shontel Brown, the Democratic representative who just won her primary, notably, just a couple of days ago on Tuesday. She is also in attendance, so let's take you live now to Tri-C for comments on the president's historic bipartisan infrastructure law.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, first of all, let me thank all of you so very much for taking time out of your busy day to be a part of this important meeting and discussion. I want to recognize our colleagues from Cuyahoga Community College and also those who are with us from the U.S. Department of Transportation and also the office of our favorite Representative Congresswoman Shontel Brown. Nice round of applause for all of them. They have done an extraordinary job in a short period of time of accommodating the needs of this particular gathering and to give us an opportunity to welcome our great secretary, who really needs no introduction. I will say, however, that he is a native of the Hoosier State, Indiana, and they tout a tremendous community college system in Ivy Tech. And he understands the power and the value of institutions like Cuyahoga Community College. So, Mr. Secretary, we welcome you today as well. I just want to share with you just briefly a few tidbits about Cuyahoga Community College. As you know, we have 4 campuses located throughout Cuyahoga County, a number of centers like the Transportation Innovation Center where you are located today, which also serves as a job hub. And its responsibility is to partner with local business and industry to ensure that individuals, as they go through their training and education, not only get qualified in different areas, earn credentials and certificates, but also are able to land a job both during the time that they are engaged in their program and following as well. So this is an important facility for that purpose. Tri-C serves 55,000 individuals each and every year. Our graduation numbers have doubled over the last 10 years. We had the highest graduation number in the history of the institution actually during the pandemic, and that really speaks. Thank you. that really speaks about the commitment of individuals to get students through their programs. And our graduation rate has improved manyfold over that period as well. It moved from 3.5% to 24%, and now we are 2 percentage points higher than any community colleges across our nation, and that's a big deal as well. Now, more importantly, the skills gap is disappearing right before our very eyes. When I arrived at the institution, only 1 out of 10 individuals was qualified to take on careers in high-paying jobs that have labor market value and provide family-sustaining wages. Right now, it's 6 out of 10 and getting smaller. So I want to commend our county exec who is with us today. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for being here. And also the president of our county council, Mr. Purnell Jones, many of you know, who is gathered with us today as well. And we have other dignitaries in the audience as well. And if I forget to mention you by name, it's only because I don't have all of the names up here, so I want to thank all of you for being here today. I think you're going to see an example of what we do in the next person coming up. So thank you all so very much for allowing me to welcome you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Darnell Tanner, and I'm a student bus operator at RTA. I attended Tri-C's Job Hub program for CDL training. I'm proud to introduce our next speaker, Congresswoman Shontel Brown. As a Tri-C graduate, she is setting a shining example for us all. Each day through her public service, Congresswoman Brown shows us that futures really do begin here, that dreams do come true, and she gives us living proof that high goals can be achieved. We're appreciative that this Tri-C grad continues to give back to her college. Today, she helps us welcome all of you as we get ready to share a few of the many pathways to jobs and hope Tri-C extends to everyone in our community. Please join me in welcoming the Congresswoman for the 11th District of Ohio, Shontel Brown.
One more time for my fellow graduate, soon-to-be graduate, Darnell, thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction, and I would like to thank Tri-C and their president, Dr. Alex Johnson, for giving us a tour this morning of the school's cutting-edge Transportation Innovation Center. As a point of personal privilege, I would just like to say that Tri-C will always hold a special place in my heart. Not only because I am a proud alumni, but also because the school is constantly finding new ways to expand opportunity through high-quality education and skills training right here in the greater Cleveland area. Now I would like to begin by welcoming Secretary Pete Buttigieg to Cleveland and to the Transportation Innovation Center. There are a lot of exciting things happening in Northeast Ohio and across the country as the bipartisan infrastructure law is rolled out, but this is at the top of my list today. Tri-C Center and its partnership with the RTA offers critical workforce training opportunities across rail, bus, and freight. These programs make our community stronger by preparing workers for good-paying jobs and helping them to fill in-demand roles that keep our economy moving. Across our tour of the center's classrooms, driver simulator, CDL testing yard, warehouse, and repair lab, it became clear just how important these efforts are to our community and our future. Tri-C and the Greater Cleveland RTA truly are working together to develop the next generation of transportation workers, arming them with the most up-to-date information on the industry. Jobs are always important, but the reach of this program is far larger. As we continue to face supply chain challenges, the program is connecting students with CDL licenses, ensuring drivers can get goods to consumers more efficiently and more cheaply. As the last generations of bus drivers age, the program is training new drivers, ensuring RTA can continue to provide high-quality service. In decades after our rail system was first laid, Tri-C is helping to turn out mechanics who will maintain the system for decades to come. These efforts are especially important in light of the historic investments from the bipartisan infrastructure law. This year, Cleveland will receive $65 million for public transit projects, with nearly $57 million going to RTA specifically. This record level of funding can be used to expand services, buy new buses and rail cars, address repair backlogs, and modernize fleets, among other things. The bipartisan infrastructure law will expand accessible and equitable public transit options here in Cleveland, and the Transportation Innovation Center will ensure we have the workers to make that vision a reality. With that, I would like to introduce President Biden's great Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who is working hard to ease supply chain troubles and ensure communities like ours gets their fair share of resources from the infrastructure law. Thank you, Secretary Pete. If you'll join us, Secretary Buttigieg, we are honored to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Representative Brown. First of all, you should know that your Congresswoman has been encouraging me for some time to come to the district, and now I see why. This is a great example of what building a better America looks like and how we're going to make good on that vision to deliver world-class infrastructure, the best transportation system in the world, benefiting everybody in the region and everybody in the country. And I also have to say, coming from northern Indiana, I feel kind of at home here in this part of Ohio. So thanks very much for your continued excellent work and for welcoming us. I want to thank Tri-C, not just for the tour, but for your absolutely essential role on the cutting edge of preparing our workforce for these jobs that we're going to be in such need of tomorrow and for the years and really for the decades to come. I want to thank the RTA and I know I'm going to keep the RTA very busy with this support, this funding that we're doing. So glad to be able to take time with your director, your chair, your staff, and so impressed with the partnership here that is making sure that you have the right qualified leaders going forward. I know we've got a lot of friends from organized labor here in the House. We are proud about the good-paying union jobs that this bill will create, and so glad to be with you. And of course, local leaders, Cuyahoga County leadership, to see the county executive leaders from the council here, Mayor Holzheimer, Gale. I appreciate all of the work that goes in, because I know, of course, as a former mayor, and my colleague Secretary Fudge, I know, would say the same thing, that it's really at that local level that the rubber meets the road. I believe that when I was a mayor. I believe that even more now that I'm a federal official. And we thank you for the work that you are doing at the city and the county level. I'll be very brief by way of introduction, because I know we're going to have a conversation and a bit of a chat here. But I just want to make clear how important the preparation of our workforce and the skill building is. We are here because the President has decided, and Congresswoman Brown and her colleagues have ensured, that this will be a season of construction, maintenance, improvement, and modernization, a season of investment in our communities that will create resources that we're going to be counting on for the rest of our lives. Just as today we count on roads and bridges and airports and tunnels and other pieces of infrastructure that were put in generations ago. It's about the construction jobs that will be created this very year And it's about the jobs that will be supported, maintaining and operating and working on the buses and the trucks and the physical infrastructure itself. And of course, the jobs that will be supported by people being able to get to where they need to be safely and efficiently and in a way that is compatible with our climate future. And that doesn't just happen. My department is in the business of building good things well and looking after them and maintaining them. And the most important part of that entire process is the people who will actually be doing the building and the maintaining. And of course, that is people like Darnell and the students and graduates here at Tri-C. So I'm here not only to celebrate the fact that we're creating a lot of good jobs that are being trained for right here, but I'm also here to emphasize that we can't do it without you. The sheer level of investment that we're putting into communities in every part of this country cannot be delivered if we are leaving any talent on the table. And there have been times when America failed to enlist all of the talent in this country, leaving people out of opportunities and shorting America's opportunity itself by not mobilizing all of that capability, all of that skill, all of that work ethic that we now have not just the opportunity but the need to maximize. It's the only way we'll get this work done. It's the only way that we'll be able to look back on the early 2020s and say that was one of those times in American history when America chose to build a better future. That's what we're here to do. That's what you're a very, very important part of here in Cuyahoga County. And I'm really looking forward to our discussion. Thanks again for having me here.
Dan DeRose with 19 News here. The Secretary is going to now hold sort of a round table with the other members of the dignitaries that are there. So let's continue to listen.
I'll be very brief so that we can start with a conversation. I know everybody's excited to get their questions in, so please don't be shy. If you are shy, I will pick on you. That's my job. So just wanted to take a quick moment. My name is India Birdsong. I serve, delighted to serve as the General Manager and CEO for RTA here in Cleveland. It's indeed a pleasure to be able to see all of you, especially the RTA students, thank you so much, to be able to share in this partnership. This kind of partnership is truly a unicorn in the industry. And when I say that, it's something that you don't see every day. It's a little bit of a rarity, and we're striving to be able to make sure that does not persist, that it becomes the norm, and it becomes the true effort to be able to connect the community. See how I put that tagline in there, RTA? That is our new mission statement, and we really strive to embody that every day. So we do appreciate the support, of course, of Mr. Secretary and also Congresswoman. Congratulations to you both. Just being able to understand and support and invest, whether it's via advocacy or financial mechanisms like the IIJA, to be able to really realize the dreams of Clevelanders, such as you see today through the partnership that we have. It really allows us to expand and become a true economic partner and transform ourselves from just a school or just a bus and train company. So thank you for that. With that, I believe that I will get into the question and answer, and I'll start with one for myself. That's the liberty I'll take of standing up here, and then we'll go to the microphones. I believe there are one on either side, so if I can ask so that we can stay on time here, if anyone who has a question, just go to either side there, and I'll make sure that I indicate when it's your turn. Thank you. And students, please feel free to ask one yourself. You're not dismissed yet. So if everyone can hear me still? Okay. I'm in a garage. I have to always check on that. Have to use my indoor voice outside. So just really quickly, this one, Mr. Secretary, is for you, and of course, Congresswoman, chime in as you feel. Understanding what you saw today on the tour, the simulator, we appreciate your skills there on the road.
I will not be quitting my day job after my performance on the simulator. I'm going to leave it to the pros.
We are recruiting all the time. What strategies do you believe can really be employed, such as this one across the country, to serve as a model for partnership? And what opportunities have you seen in your travels across the United States that might be a good indicator of success, like cities in Cleveland?
Well, what we know is that we already had a huge need for skilled workers in transportation-related jobs, and that need's only going to grow now that we're investing $1.2 trillion across the country in our infrastructure. Right now, the trucking industry, for example, estimates that we are 80,000 workers short of where we need to be.
It's a huge number.
If you look at our supply chains, it's not that less is moving through our system. Actually, more goods are moving through our system than ever before. You look at the Q1 numbers at the Port of LA and Long Beach and the containers that are going to come eventually all the way up I-80 through here. If you look at retail sales last year at the holiday season, that was an all-time record high. And in order to be able to keep up with that, we're going to need more skilled workers than ever. And that's just, when we're talking about the driving, that's just the beginning. Maintaining and operating and fixing this equipment. And, of course, we're going through technological revolutions in terms of the nature of the equipment. It's increasingly computerized, it's increasingly hybrid or electric or running on other alternative fuels. So it also means that as the new equipment comes in, we're going to have new needs for the skills to operate on that. All of that creates a huge, huge amount of pressure on the system. The question is, how can the system prepare people in communities for these really good paying jobs that have a great future and get them prepared for those jobs as quickly as possible? And so when the people who are doing the hiring are in strong partnership with the people who are doing the training, that's a model that we want to see emulated here. I know the RTA is doing that with Tri-C. I've seen how a lot of the regional employers who are right in this area, Amazon, I think Grainger has had a partnership. Everybody's bringing their piece of the puzzle. And that's very encouraging because, frankly, we can't sit in the department and order anybody to do much of anything when it comes to teaming up. We can provide the resources, but that kind of teamwork is what's actually going to make it possible. And I know there's a lot of interest from the Congresswoman and her colleagues who have entrusted our department with all these funds. And how's it going? How quickly are we going to see the results? How are the goods going to move more fluidly? How are the bridges and the roads and the tunnels going to get improved? And one of the biggest factors that's going to decide our success is whether we have the workers ready to do it.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that response. I'll say for all of the marketing folks in here, I hope you were taking notes. That was probably pitch perfect. So, Congresswoman, if I can ask if you can maybe chime in on that, and maybe if you've seen programs such as this that we could take your advice in emulating.
Absolutely. I think we are on the cutting edge. I would yield to the Secretary, but I noticed that during the tour we talked about expanding the program to include drones because of how the industry is changing. Proud of the equipment and the boards that you have that you identified as a rare piece of learning equipment that all schools don't have that. So I think that the investments that are being made right here in my own backyard are demonstrative of the partnerships and the resources and the tools being maximized so that we can start to deliver for the people who are trusting us to get products from the port to the shelves, right? And no better example than the public-private partnerships that were demonstrated today. So I think this is an excellent blueprint for the rest of the country to be able to follow.
Well, I'll say it's nothing better. I come from a long line of teachers. And in fact, I was an English major, nothing to do with transportation. I think my staff hates.
It's funny how that happens.
See, of my own heart there. And so I always keep a pen ready. My staff loves it or hates it, I don't know. But being able to understand the value of the partnership, I think is great. I think to that end, thinking about the educational piece of it, I'd like to be able to go to the microphones for a moment. We have a lot of educators in the audience as well, who I know have a lot of questions. If I can take a moment, if we have a question from the audience, please step up to the mic. If not, I'll continue, but I think we've got one here on the right.
Hello, and thank you very much. I represent Ohio News Jobs, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. My name is Ida Ford. My question, since the infrastructure bill has passed, what other priorities are you working on?
Well, now our responsibility, last year we were in sales mode, just get the bill done. And that was a big lift. You remember, a lot of people were chuckling when the president suggested that we could get a bipartisan agreement to do something this big. And it's impossible to overstate how big of a deal this is. It's the most we've done for highways and bridges since Eisenhower. It's the most we've done for transit ever as a federal government. And as you know, that $65 million coming to this neck of the woods is just the beginning.
We thank you.
We know you're going to use it well.
Absolutely.
getting that passed and signed was a big deal, but now the selling is over, and now we're into the doing. And that presents a lot of challenges, good challenges to have compared to not having the funding, but real challenges. Do we have enough raw materials to build all of the roads and bridges and tunnels and airport improvements and everything else that we're working on? Do we have the right supply chains to get them to where they need to be? See, we're not only overseeing supply chains, we're also counting on them. Because in addition to those PlayStations that might be coming on one of those boats, there might be equipment that we need to get the job done. Although to that, I would add, a major priority for the President and the administration is for more of that equipment to be made right here in America, so we're not waiting for it to come in on a boat from China. And you're going to see a lot about keeping it made in America in this administration. We need, not to belabor the point, but do we have the people to get this job done? And we certainly have enough human beings to get the job done, but we empowered those human beings with the skills to succeed and connected the dots, especially if maybe construction or transportation doesn't run in the family. Maybe if you haven't seen somebody who looks like you in one of these construction jobs or transportation jobs, whether we're talking about a hard hat installing an electric vehicle charging station, or whether we're talking about an airline pilot taking off at the airport here in Cleveland. And that's why we got to make sure that we are drawing more women into the field, more workers of color into the field, people from every walk of life. So our job comes down to making sure now that we've gotten the bill that we're putting it to work and that we see the benefits in terms of a safer transportation system, in terms of a stronger economy, in terms of ways to beat the climate challenge with things like electric vehicles, and in terms of an equitable rollout that's actually going to benefit everybody and not just some.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. If okay, we'll move to the next. And of course, I want to be able to toggle back and forth between our two panelists here. So if I interject in the middle, we'll continue it in that vein. So Doctor, please continue.
So this is a question for Secretary Buttigieg. You have undertaken and achieved some amazing goals, serving as the mayor of the city, running for president, and now serving as the U.S. Secretary of Transportation. What is the best piece of advice you've been given that you could share with us in terms of setting and then working to achieve your goals, regardless of how big they are?
Well, I'd be very curious to hear the Congresswoman's answer on this too, but I'll offer you mine. I'll mention two things. One, the power of setting a goal and sharing it and saying it out loud, and making yourself a little bit vulnerable by being committed to that goal. So to take one example, we had an issue with vacant and abandoned properties when I was mayor, and they sat so long, the neighbors began to conclude that it wasn't that the city was trying to do something about it, the city wasn't even trying. That's how they felt. And so we set a goal of dealing with 1,000 houses in 1,000 days, which for a city our size was a big lift. Yeah. And we didn't know if we could get it done, but we knew that if we put that goal out there, we had to get it done. And that goal had a lot of power. So being transparent and specific about goals is important. And it's what we're doing right now as a department. We're setting ambitious goals on everything from cutting the number of roadway deaths in America to raising the number of DBEs that are doing business with our department. And through those goals, we're gonna light a fire, sometimes under ourselves when necessary, to go after it. The second thing that I would mention that I learned, and again, I see this lesson at play here, is that a good advice that I got from one of my predecessors is that it's your team that makes it break you.
That's right.
I figured out very quickly that, and it's true as an agency head leading the Department of Transportation, it was also true as a mayor and as a candidate. If you think of an orchestra, right, somebody like me is just conducting. Everybody else is making the sound. Everybody else is making the music. And all I do is set the tempo and try to keep everybody together. And the sooner you understand that, the better things will go. Because ultimately, that team, you rise and fall with a team. But I'd be very curious to hear the Congresswoman's answer.
Well, thank you, Secretary. For me, it is staying deeply rooted in your faith, not letting any challenges dissuade or define you. People can call you what you want, but it's up to you to how you respond. And so it is being really clear about who you are as much as who you want to be. And so staying focused on those goals, setting accountable and achievable goals. I think you touched on it with vulnerability. When you say the things out loud, you make yourself a little vulnerable, but also it forces you to be accountable. And so when you put those things out there, and maybe you don't hit your goal, but you don't look at it as a loss. Look at it as a lesson. Figure out what you can learn from that so you can make improvements the next time.
So amazing, amazing responses. Of course, we wouldn't expect anything less. But really being able to inspire, I think, is really what we appreciate and really the reason that you're here. We're going to go over to our next question on my right here. So, Executive.
Thank you very much. And I first want to start by thanking you, Mr. Secretary, for coming in and for working so hard to get this package put together. It's very helpful. And I want to take the opportunity to congratulate our newly re-elected Congresswoman here.
Thank you, County Executive.
Who was integral in helping pass this legislation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Brown.
Thank you.
My question, you touched on some of this, Mr. Secretary, is the fact that technology is changing. And when we talked, the topic here, we were told was workforce, and to be able to prepare people for the jobs that are here and coming, they have to be able to address this new technology. I mean, we have, lots of people who are, mechanics, good jobs, but with all the changes in electric vehicles and hydrogen powered and all the other things, we have to train them. We're going to have to retrain them. We've got great partnership with Tri-C and others in the community, but it requires resources. And you and the Congresswoman have made sure we have those resources. I know Council President Jones and I are very interested in finding out what we can do to get those resources here. How can we grab onto some of those?
You want to start?
Well, sure. Well, since becoming a member, one of the things that I think has been the biggest challenge in having sat where you currently sit is, when is the money coming? That's been the biggest question. And so I know that we have to be in strong partnership with our state because a lot of the resources will come through the state. We are also in some positions to put forth competitive dollars. And what I like about with the administration, I think Secretary Buttigieg can speak more clearly about this, is that the highest priorities have been given to the areas and the communities with the greatest needs. And so that is critically important to me, especially as I represent clearly one of the largest, poorest big cities in the nation. So it's exciting. It's an exciting opportunity. So prioritizing those areas is, I think, going to be very beneficial to Cuyahoga County because we have some of the oldest infrastructure in the state. And in addition to that, the thing that I'm also very excited about from the administration's their investment for the Minority Business Development Agency, because that is another opportunity for low-income communities or low-income businesses, but specifically black businesses and small businesses to be able to get their hands on dollars that they historically haven't been able to receive. And that is going to deal with our economic wealth gap in this area. So the things that we're waiting for, partially for the state, partially a competitive process, but I think the person in the administration might have a little more insight.
So we're determined to be a good partner in helping local communities access these dollars. And one of the things we're mindful of is the communities in greatest need won't always have the most resources by definition to go about applying for federal funds, right? The application processes, the compliance processes. I'm guessing the mayor doesn't have full-time staff in Washington, D.C. to help manage that. Yeah, exactly. You have a representative. Yeah, exactly. I'm guessing the county doesn't have legions of transportation specialists who just do federal compliance. We got to make ourselves user-friendly. And that's a big focus for us. And that's expected of us by the president when it comes to making good on our commitments for underserved and overburdened communities to thrive. Specifically in terms of preparing for technology, it's very important for us to make sure that this is a win, and it can be. There's a the famous case of the invention of the ATM. When the ATM was invented, a lot of folks thought, well, there won't be any jobs working in banks anymore. You're taking the teller, which is a person, and turning it into an automated teller machine. The machine's going to do that for you. There'll be no more jobs. What actually happened was retail banking employment went up, but the jobs were different. Just getting money out of a drawer became something that a machine could do for you. But helping a customer with an issue became something you needed to talk to somebody about. And so we need to make sure that that's the same kind of pattern that happens in some of these other fields. We need to make choices that deliver the gains and the benefits from technology to the workers who are creating all of the value in the first place. And that means ensuring that when a new piece of technology comes along, we create pathways for those workers who have been there all along to train up on the new skills that are needed or the complications that exist with that, whether we're talking about electrification or the other things that are happening. And we need to do it quickly.
That's it.
Because we see more, frankly, we're not able to fill the jobs that we have in so many areas. Now, the other thing I'll keep coming back to is having strong local partners to work with. So, for example, from an RTA perspective, our low and no emission bus program includes a 5% requirement that when you get a grant from us, you have to put it toward workforce. I'm sure there are a few transit agencies thinking, how are we supposed to do that? And there are other transit agencies that already have very sophisticated workforce partnerships. And that's going to be vital, I think, to effectively using those dollars. Working with partners like community colleges, like labor unions that do so much training either in-house or in partnership with community colleges to actually make good on these possibilities. That's vital both to get the job done and to do right by the workers that we're counting on.
Thank you. So thank you so much for the question and also for the answers. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to take one more question and then a last comment from myself and, of course, our panelists to round us out. So if you would go ahead with yours, ma'am.
Hi, this is for the Congresswoman. My name is Odetta Jordan. I'm with Providing Hands, and I just recently graduated the program last week.
Congratulations.
We are recently opening a warehouse for ex-offenders to run.
Okay.
And I've heard the demand of jobs in the supply chain and transportation. Where is it leading for the ex-offenders to get back into the workforce in the funding for these ex-offenders to get the training that is needed for them to get back into the workforce?
Thank you for the question. I believe that this program is probably one of the best for citizens re-entering the community because there are very few, if any, restrictions when it comes to driving for individuals to get back into the workforce. I know for certain because I've worked with Tri-C, and that's one of the questions that I've asked about because we have a significant population here, specifically in the greater Cleveland area, of returning citizens who have served their time but have had many barriers with getting back into the workforce. But this is a pathway that puts them on a career, puts them towards moving a career where they can start out making a great living. So there, as far as I know, no restrictions on the funding resources that have been allocated to Tri-C to enhance and improve these programs. So I think it's a great opportunity for more people that are looking to find a job that's starting as much as $18 an hour after, I think, what did you say, 40 weeks of training? 40 hours of training, yes. 40 hours of training to get right into the workforce and start making a decent living. So I thank you for that question. And congratulations to you.
Secretary, I don't know if you wanted to add to any of those comments or?
Just to state that, again, we can't leave any talent on the table. Right. So not only is it important to support returning citizens in that pathway toward being able to thrive and contribute, but also we need everyone's abilities and skills harnessed in order to deliver. So for both of those reasons, I appreciate the work that you're doing and the intention that's going into that.
So I think we are at a point in the program where everyone wants to take your photos. But I will say, if I can, just a couple comments. Thank you, everyone. Especially, I see our representatives from our Amalgamated Transit Union in the audience here. We're very excited to be able to partner not only with Tri-C at RTA, but also with the ATU and also with the FOP on the policing side. It's really important that we support these initiatives and we support each other through even just emerging from the pandemic. You saw me have the mask on here and off here. It's kind of like, what do you do, right? To be able to.
Dan DeRosa with 19 News. Looks like we've lost our feed, but it appears that was wrapping up anyway. A visit by Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg to the Cleveland area. In fact, visiting Tri-C and their very unique program, and which works in collaboration with the RTA and Tri-C to get individuals trained not just to drive the buses and to be able to get a CDL, a commercial driver's license, but also learn how to repair buses, semis, the transportation need that we have out there. You heard Secretary Buttigieg say that this country is down about 80,000 truck drivers, and if they can go to Tri-C and get a CDL and get back out there, that's going to help our supply chain issue that we have all been experiencing really for the last year or two. Wanted to bring this to you in its entirety there as Secretary Buttigieg visited Northeast Ohio. If we have any other breaking news, we'll bring it to you here on our digital platforms. Otherwise, we have 3.5 hours of news starting at 3 o'clock today on Channel 19. I'm Dan DeRosa for 19 News Now. Have a good afternoon.
19 News. First, fair, everywhere.